All right, my friends, this is a attempt to make a remake of this video, which I uploaded the other day from Hebron, and sadly the audio was messed up, and you couldn't hear the tour, the guiding that I was giving at the tour. So you'll see now that my talking is not in line with the movement of my lips because I'm just I'm recording over the same video. Behind me you can see Maarat HaMachpeleh, which is the cave of the Machpelah, the historical burial place of the patriarchs and matriarchs of Israel. Abraham and Sarah, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Jacob, Yaakov, and Leah. Rachel is buried in Bethlehem. So this tour is all about Maarat HaMachpeleh, the building that is ahead of us. This, as you can see, is an ancient building. If we get close and look at the stones of the wall, we will notice that the stones are very similar to the stones of the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. They're very large. They're very large carved stones, and they have a type of frame around the edges, around all four edges of the front part of the stone. So it is very similar to the Western Wall, and that type of stone is considered the Herodian stone, the stone of the time of Herod, which has led many to speculate that this building was also built by Herod the great builder of many monuments and many cities in the land of Israel. Herod the Great lived just before the current era. He died about 4 minus the Common Era, and he was the great builder. He built the walls of the Temple Mount, and he built the temple, which is on top of the Temple Mount, that is not there today. And he built the port city at Caesarea. He built the city of Shomron, Sebastia. He built his burial place and palace at Herodian. There are many places amazing, and of course the palace on Mitzada was also built by Herod the Great. So many scholars, researchers, historians speculate that this building too was built by Herod. It was surely built in the period of Herod, but we do not have evidence, historical evidence that Herod actually built this building, but we know it's from the same period. This area, Hebron, in Herod's time was considered Edomia, which was south, a different country south of Judea. And later Hebron was captured by the Hashmonean kings, by John Hyrcanus or Yochanan Hyrcanus. So here we're coming up to the entrance to the Maarat HaMachpeleh, the cave of the patriarchs. This is the security entrance, and now that we're also dealing with the COVID pandemic in Israel, people must show a green pass in order to enter closed areas, which means that they either have a certificate of vaccination or recovery, or have done a recent PCR test in the last 3 days or the last day or whatever it might be. So people are standing here online to go through the security check into the area that is designated now for Jewish people for prayer. Outside of the Machpelah, we can see the tents that were placed here also during the different regulations or limitations of the COVID, so people can pray in the tents outside of the Machpelah, near it, and those who have the documentation can enter, can go through the security check here, and then walk up the stairs, which we will shortly do. We'll enter. And you can see it's very busy today. I'm recording this tour on the 8th day of Hanukkah. In the Jewish tradition, on each evening, the evening before, we light candles. One candle on the first evening of Hanukkah, and then two on the second, and each day we add an additional candle until we reach the evening of the 8th day of Hanukkah, and we light 8 candles. And on the evening following the 8th day of Hanukkah, we do not light any candles. So typically on Hanukkah we need to be home early in order to light the candles, but today being the 8th day of Hanukkah, we have no candles to light this evening, so we can go out for different tours further away from home without needing to get home on time to light candles. So the place is pretty busy. There are many families and many groups visiting the Machpelah. Here we're spanning around and seeing the city of Hebron. And we're walking up the steps. On the way up the steps, there was a room there where people can have meals. They can bring food from home and have a festive meal at the cave. Pilgrims who are coming to pray at the tombs of the fathers and mothers of our nation, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rivka, and Leah. The Maarat HaMachpeleh has been divided since the mid-80s, mid-90s, 1994. Here we're meeting with Simcha Hochbaum, who is a resident. Rabbi Simcha Hochbaum is a resident of the Jewish community of Hebron, and he said a few words of blessings and welcome on this video, but sadly the audio did not come out well enough, so we can't hear him. But I urge you to come to the Machpelah and meet Rabbi Simcha Hochbaum. He's a very sweet man, and he has much to tell us about the history and the holiness of this location. We're walking into the entrance, and let's see this huge stone mezuzah. And mezuzah is a Jewish tradition to place parchment with the verses of Shema Yisrael on the doorways of entrances to every building. And this is the Olam HaBritot at the Machpelah. This is a study hall and a place where families have the Brit Milah. And now we're actually walking into the Herodian ancient building. We see women here praying at the Tziyun, the place that signs or symbolizes the burial place of Jacob, Yaakov Avinu, the father of our nation. And here, the gate behind us, there's a tomb here that symbolizes the burial place of Joseph, Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph the righteous one. But you might ask, just a second, haven't we visited Joseph's tomb in Shechem, Nablus, which is north? It's about 2 hours north of here. So that's right. According to the Jewish tradition, Joseph was buried in Shechem, Nablus, but there's a local Muslim tradition that Joseph was buried here. So they have a marking to commemorate Joseph. And here we see many Jewish people. Most of the people here are Israelis because there's not much incoming tourism now because of the pandemic. In typical regular years, we have about 4.5 million tourists coming in to Israel. But in 2021, because of the pandemic, we only had 11,000 tourists come in. That's really like nothing at all. See the magnificent ancient building, the huge stone slabs of the floor, and see these closed doors. These closed doors are the passageway into Olam Yitzchak, the room that symbolizes the burial place of Yitzchak, Isaac, and Rivka. And that area is now designated for Muslim prayer. Muslims can enter the building from the other side of the building, and Jewish people can enter this side of the building most days of the year. But there are 10 days that the entire building is open for Muslim prayer, and there are 10 days that the entire building is open for Jewish prayer. And on those days, the days that it's open for Jewish prayer, only Jews can enter the entire building and Muslims cannot enter. And on the days that the whole building is reserved for Muslim prayer, only Muslims can enter. Here we're walking into the room that symbolizes the burial place of Yaakov, Jacob, and Leah. We see the very beautiful architecture, the stones of a red color, alternating some red stones and some white stones. That is a type of architecture that was used by the Mamluk Muslim Empire, who controlled the land of Israel some 800 years ago. And it's also interesting to point out that since that time, Jewish people were not allowed to enter the Maarat HaMachpeleh. Actually, more or less before that as well. This building has, throughout the ages, has been held as a holy place by Christians. The Crusaders built a church here on the same building, and then by the Muslims and by the Jews. So it's a holy place for the three religions who all consider Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the biblical prophets, or in the Jewish tradition, the fathers, the patriarchs, and the matriarchs of the nation of Israel. Now see this border police woman who is guarding the entrance to the building. This Jewish mom has asked her to hold her baby while she straightens out her head covering. That was pretty cute. Now we're walking back towards the exit, the same entrance that we walked into the building. This is the Olam Britot, where they have the circumcision ceremonies, and we are walking out, and we can see the city of Hebron all around us. By the way, I was here today in Hebron leading a tour for the Sephardic synagogue in Kfar Tapuach, which is the town that I live in the Shomron, and I often pray at the Sephardic synagogue. So the Gabbai, the leader of the synagogue, asked me if I would be a guide for our community, and we toured around the hills of Hebron. We were at a Jewish town called Carmel, where there is a perfume factory where they make perfumes and lotions from different types of vegetation that grows specifically in this area. When you come on tour with me to Hebron, we might be able to stop by at the perfume factory at Carmel and visit that town as well, and maybe also visit Susia, which is not far not far away. We, Today, with this group, we are also visiting Beit Hadassah, the museum for the Jewish community of the city of Hebron. In all, it's a very, very special day and a very worthwhile tour. I hope to see you here in the land of Israel and in Hebron. I hope that you are enjoying this video. Why don't you hit the subscribe button and also share any questions or comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you, and if you do have anything to say, I will be glad to respond to your questions there. So I hope that you enjoyed this video tour, and again I apologize for the first version of this coming out with no audio. I am learning. This is a learning experience making these videos, and I hope as I learn more about this and upgrade my equipment, I think that the videos are going to become more and more professional and more enjoyable for you. And also, I am planning to start doing live streaming tours, starting out in Jerusalem and then maybe do it other places as well. So stay tuned for updates on that. Be well. Shalom. This is David Ha'ivri from the holy city of Hebron.